You're listening to Alternative Future Radio, home of the weird, resting place of the paranormal. Will take you to the furthest reaches of the galaxy and beyond. Strange phenomena, aliens, psychics, cryptozoology, conspiracy, holistic health, and UFOs. Alternative Future Radio, where spooky just got weird.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Out There Hour. Today we're talking about money. Some like it, some love it. I love it.
The Out There Hour on Alternative Future Radio. The Out There Hour with Basil and Mark. www.alternativefutureradio.com.
Yay! Basil, any? Yay?
Welcome, Europe, Africa, and the Middle East.
And the rest of the world.
Today,
good morning.
We are talking. Good morning. Good evening, good afternoon.
Yes, I said money, but not as we know it.
Money is not, money, paper money.
Who is it?
What is it? Do we want it?
Do I need it?
Yeah.
Is it something I want?
Well, you need it.
Yeah, well, you do. Because if I am a plumber and you're a baker and I need some buns, but I don't need, and you don't need any plumbing doing, you know.
What on earth are you talking?
This is not a metaphor.
Well, we're in an interesting position since the recent vote on the fiscal treaty, so we'll be talking about money today, and actually how to protect your money if you've got any left.
We're talking gold, we're talking silver.
Yeah.
We're also talking hammers. We're talking Stefan Kramer.
We're talking Stefan Kramer, a man with 15 years' experience as a gold broker.
Oh, blimey, research, Basil.
He's an international business.
No, yes. Ships gold all over the place.
Celtic Gold.
Yeah, celticgold.eu is his website. And I can personally vouch that he's actually pretty bloody cheap, to be honest. In fact, so far for me, he's been the cheapest.
And Stefan has got his eye on the ball. He sees what's happening with fiat currency and paper currency as we know it. And he's out. He wants to help.
Yeah, exactly.
To help you.
He provides lots of free information. He's got a newsletter I think you can subscribe to on his website, which is very professionally written. They have experts and such like.
He'll be talking about, he's going on a tour to go around
apparently so.
And chat with people and tell them.
And sell gold directly and silver.
Yeah, and just give advice as well on the best way to, to buy it and...
To strengthen your portfolio, some might say.
Yeah, exactly.
Shall we do it?
Let's do it. Let's talk to Stefan, because it's always a pleasure to talk to Steph.
You know what you need first?
An advert, I think.
Yeah.
Why not help support this station by buying the new Alternative Future Radio Android application? Not only can you download all the latest shows, but you can go back into time and get the archive shows too, and it's just $1.99. PayPal will bill you in your usual currency if you don't use dollars.
Okay, so hopefully, all things being equal, we should now have Stefan Kramer on the line. Hello, Stefan.
Hello, Mark. Hello, Basil.
Hello, Stefan. It's always such a pleasure to speak to you.
Well, thank you for having me another time on your fantastic show.
Well, anytime, Steph.
It's actually nice to have a different accent, because we actually generally have a lot of American people on here, or English people. It makes a change.
Yes, and we broadcast to Europe and the Middle East and Africa, so...
Still very big in the Middle East.
Good to have a European.
Yeah. I wish I knew why we're big in Saudi Arabia, but anyway, press on. Stefan, it's been an interesting time recently in the world's financial markets. We were talking about this briefly before we came on air. Gold has seen some highs and some lows recently. The trend's been down recently, hasn't it, Stefan? And then it's recently gone back up again.
Well, that's accurate. We've seen approximately 3 weeks of gold going in like a sideways bottom area. And there was a lot of fear and anxiety in the market, mainly communicated by the main media, saying gold lost its safe haven status and it's the commodity and it goes down to 1400. And that caused a lot of anxiety in the gold investor scene. And last Friday we've seen an historical event, and gold actually bounced back up 4.2%, which is unseen. And historically, it was a very, very rare that gold ever closed a 3% plus in one day. So that's kind of like, it's kind of like a very important day for every gold investor.
Yeah.
And everyone had this sort of like psychological mark in mind of $1,600, and gold actually pushed through this resistance, closed at 1620. And today it's pretty stable. It's kind of a sideways trade, a little bit calmer today. But in general, this is all very interesting, and the world seems to see the problems we're having, like
Yes.
the unemployment data from the States sent the stock markets massively down, minus 3% in Germany, minus 2.2% in America, the Dow Jones last Friday.
And did that money then just get taken straight out and put into gold?
Spain thinks they need another a few billions to help their system. Greece got another share, and the Bank of England just announced to print another £50 billion.
Oh, that was quiet news. I didn't hear that mentioned.
Yeah, they said they're gonna print another 50 billion, and so we can see we're in this sort of like worldwide currency devaluation competition in a way, So the question is, who's first or who is last?
Yeah, and is it good, Stefan? A lot of people will know a little bit about this. Is it good to win this race to the bottom? Because I assume they're doing it to try and compete against China.
Well, it's mostly to do with the country's economy. If you have a weak currency and another country does have a stronger currency, then it's much cheaper to buy from your country with a weak currency.
Yeah.
So they're trying to compete themselves in a devaluation. But the problem is that it hurts everything. It hurts the people that have assets in the currency. So if you have assets in the euro, like the 1,000 euro in your bank account, or the 100,000 euro, or US dollars, or British pounds, or Australian dollars, they all get devalued. So you lose in purchasing power, and that actually destroys the economy on a long term.
What would be the motivation to do that then?
Well, that's a tricky question, Mark. The motivation to do that, I don't really know. It's kind of, if you have a lot of debt, so the US debt is like 15 point something trillion or 17 trillion currently.
Yeah, that's their cash debt, isn't it? That's not their total liability.
Yeah, that's just the official debt.
Yeah.
And if you have a lot of debt and you print more money, you devalue your debt.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of idea. And well, every country in the Western world kind of tenfold their debt within the last 10 years.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's been a historical thing where a country, like you say, it's devalued its currency to try and pay off its debts cheaper. The problem is everybody's doing the same thing at the same time. So are we all going down the pan in parallel?
Well, fairly, yeah.
So that helps nobody really, because if we all go down, nobody wins.
That's absolutely right. The question is, when is it going to all end?
Yeah, and how? How is it? How does this scenario play out, Stefan? Has this happened before? Is there a precedent to this, or is it all new?
Well, this has happened many times in history. So it's like a repetitive pattern that occurs all the time. And the last time we talked about this fantastic research that was done by two economists that wrote this fantastic book called "This Time It's Different: 8 Centuries of Financial Folly."
Yeah.
And so they state that these patterns occur all the time, every time, no exceptions. So, and the thing we can learn from it is that there's only a few ways to protect one's wealth. I mean, if you're in debt, never mind, just keep going.
Yeah.
And the debt will resolve. Well, that's the good news about it. But if you have some assets, then it's wise to protect them.
Yes.
So, and there's only two ways to do it. The first one is to physical own gold and silver, and the second one is to own tangible assets.
Yes.
It's like stuff people need, right?
Yeah.
So it's like food and livestock or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, a trailer full of hammers or something useful.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure how far you would go with a trailer of hammers.
People will always need hammers. I'm big into hammers. Never mind your gold. Hammers are the future.
Okay, very good. Well, add a few nails.
Yes. Oh,
to your portfolio, and I would definitely go for soap, and salt and sugar and stuff like that.
Indeed. Yes. So, sorry. Go on. I interrupted.
No, that's basically it. So there is one website that's an absolute recommended must read, and it's Jim Sinclair website. He's an old professional in the industry, and his website is www.jsmindset.com, and he reports on a daily basis that about the movements in the markets, and he just put up a post saying that we're 24 months from now to the collapse of the currencies.
Well, all of them?
Well, the major ones, definitely. The euro is falling apart already.
Yeah.
I mean, it's only a question of another 500 billion down the road.
Yeah, tell us about the euro. I mean, you I'm sure know a lot about the euro. Political project more than anything else, a lot of people would say, rather than a financial one. I would be of that persuasion. I think a lot of other people would as well.
It began at Maastricht. It was basically an experiment.
Yeah.
In the 70s.
It's fiscal unions like this. They've been tried before. Soviet Union, the American Union technically is still a union of states. I mean, how do you see this playing out? What are there any fundamental flaws in the euro, for example? I mean, I can think of a few, but I'm not the guest.
The first thing is that the people are often confused with, like, saying, "Oh, we can opt out of the euro any time." It's just like, okay, Greece is leaving the euro, but that's not accurate. So I wrote an article for the Sovereign Independent, and I stated a web link, which I'm happy to forward to you.
Yeah.
That clearly states in the EU statutes, sort of like terms and conditions, that once this currency union was made, it's it's irreversible. So it's not just that you just said, "Oh well, Greece, Greece didn't really play to the rules, so we're going to drop them." It's like all or nothing. So we kind of see the euro on a downwards trend towards the dollar.
Can I just ask one quick question?
Yes.
With all rules, there is always an or else. So what happens if a country says we're not going to use the euro? I mean, is there an or else? Is there a threat to back that up if they say you can't do it?
Well, as far as my knowledge goes, there's only two countries that had like an opting out clause in the contract, which is Denmark and Great Britain.
Right.
But they're both not part of the euro.
Yes. Very helpful. Yeah.
So there you go, and that's the kind of the problem. This is how to explain this massive bailouts of countries that are utterly broke.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no hope for Greece. All they can do is they can wipe their slate clean, say, "Look, we're really sorry. We messed a few things up, and we're going to start new."
Yeah.
And there's some people telling this is a default, and it is a default, but they're still sort of like up and running, under the umbrella. Germany got a few billion down and this and that, and the ECB bought a few bonds, and it's all this kind of like masquerade in a way.
They're kind of like the financial version of a functioning alcoholic.
Well, that's a very good description, actually, yes.
They go to work every day and they pay their bills, but they're a mess.
Yeah, in a way it is. And it's a very sad situation on the other side.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
on one hand, we kind of know these things have to unravel and it will happen, but I mean there's billions upon billions of people's life savings being wiped out.
Yes. Oh, yeah. That's the real
which is very sad
problem, yeah. For pensions and things like that are being devalued as well as your savings. And if you're going to stop working and rely on your pension, that's not savings, that's livelihood.
Well, if you've got savings in cash...
Yeah, same thing.
I think the advice we're sort of heading for here is perhaps start looking at gold.
And hammers.
Yeah, gold or silver.
Yeah.
And nails.
Yeah, but you don't sell hammer or nails.
Yeah.
No, we don't. But we do sell gold and silver.
Yeah, I mean, Stefan, do give your website address. We'll get it off you again later, but do give it out.
Well, our website is www.celticgold.eu.
Yeah.
And we just got a facelift, so maybe the readers are interested to just check in and see what we did. So we've got a live gold and silver price up now, which is updated every minute.
Oh, that's
so people
good.
can really see. And we run dollar, euros, and pounds as a currency. So we've got a lot of added products that are like best price in Europe. So if you really want to invest, you kind of go with like a Krugerrand or a Maple Leaf, and you buy them circulated. The coins are not bad; they just have been shipped around a few times.
Yeah.
And these coins currently are absolutely close to the spot price. We never sold that cheap, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
But that's like a general theme currently in the bullion dealer market, because everyone is kind of like sitting on stock, and they want to kind of like sell it off,
Yeah.
Are you still in around the same price range for that coin we mentioned the last time you were on? I think it's around 1,300. Are you still selling it for the same amount, or has it gone up?
If we would have talked last Wednesday, yes. Gold moved up quite significantly on Friday. So right now spot is 1302 on a euro basis.
Okay.
So, and we're selling the Krugerrand at 3.1% over spot. So the current 1 ounce price is 1,342 euros, give or take. It's very good to buy at the moment. But obviously, I'm the guy who's sort of like running the shop as well. There's a bit of a conflicted interest, but I always invite people to gain knowledge about these things and to understand what's going on, because this is not something like, it just happened. This is something that happens all the time.
Yeah.
And it's I kind of it's wise to get the feel for it, like I get it. It's like this feeling, the splinter in your mind that Morpheus in the Matrix movies talks to Neo about it.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, something's wrong, but you can't see it, you don't really know it,
Exactly.
Yes, yeah.
And this is what we're kind of transporting in the Gold Bulletin, which is our newsletter.
Yes.
And it's not like a sales thing. It's like a free ongoing seminar, an education that teaches people about the history of these things and about the current movements and what to do.
It's worth pointing out, I suppose, that gold, as we talked about before, doesn't really, in any great meaningful way, go up or down in price. It's the money that moves to match the gold.
It's the money that's devaluing at the moment, but the gold won't.
So this week, the gold went up first of all, then down. That actually means that the money went down and then up. Would that be correct?
Well, on a long enough timeline, that's absolutely correct. There are short-term interruptions.
Yeah.
And obviously, we talked about market manipulation. So there is always the players on the other side, which is big banks that technically run the Federal Reserve, like JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, and these players, and they don't want a gold and silver price that is high. So they manipulate the price to the downside. And the good thing that happened last Friday is that due to this massive move up in gold, and both silver, of course, as well, the speculator side changed. There was a dramatic change in silver, so the silver shorts nearly got wiped out completely. And the longs, which is like a bet for a higher price, increased dramatically. So that is all very, very bullish. And the gold market is right now clean of all these short positions that are suppressing the price market. The price. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're going to buy silver, if a big corporation buys a lot of long-term silver contracts, and you're just average Joe Soap, and you want to buy maybe €1,000 worth of silver, if they're buying it in billions, it's probably a good indication that you're about to make at least some degree of money on your smaller investment if you follow the big boys.
Oh, well, absolutely. Well, following the big boys is not always good. If you follow JP Morgan, you're kind of on the outside.
Yeah, well, yeah. You're going to find yourself in a straitjacket if you follow them, I think.
Yeah, so you kind of want to see where's the market going at the moment. The long term, both metals are absolutely straight upwards.
Mm-hmm.
So the next thing that we don't talk about a bubble here. So if these people read this main media news, I just did an article discussion in the last newsletter before Sunday, and we talked about this Business Insider article, The Truth About Gold, the ultimate guide to gold. And this editor, he was comparing, he was saying gold is not a hedge against inflation. It's not. So, and he compared the gold price with the CPI, the Consumer Price Index. And we all know the CPI is not accurate. It's a lie.
It's complete and utter bullshit.
So I told our readers, and I said, look, if you compare gold price with the CPI, you're not getting the right conclusion. You have to compare gold price with the increase or decrease in money mass, because that's the accurate number on inflation. The question is, how much money more do we have current in the economy floating about or not?
I mean, the CPI is made up of crazy things like 8 gigabyte memory sticks, which only ever get cheaper. So they're just crazy.
And they change the basket.
Yeah, constantly to make it suit their desire.
Absolutely. So if you, and the interesting thing is that the Federal Reserve stopped announcing the M3, which is like all the circulating floating dollars.
Really?
In 2010. You don't get the number anywhere. So the question is, why did they stop announcing it?
Interesting, because they were clearly pumping the market heavily with cheap free dollars, or debt-backed dollars, but yeah.
Totally. So if you're kind of following the main media, you get definitely sent in the wrong direction. And there's hardly ever a good article out. I mean, the Financial Times does have usually good articles about gold and like accurate information.
Yeah.
And so we're kind of looking for an alternative view on these things that are based on more real data and not just messed up ones.
Yeah. Stefan, I think it's probably worth going into some of the reasons why people might want to invest in silver and gold, because, I mean, we all know that your company sells silver and gold, fair enough, and in truth, you are very cheap. I'm only a little small buyer. I haven't got much money, so I might buy, historically, I've been buying maybe 1 ounce of silver here and there from eBay or something like that. Now, on eBay, there are roughly about £30 an ounce delivered. Whereas I know when I got a price from you last week, I think it was 26 euros plus delivery. But you would often buy, a number of them. It adds up. It's significant when you're buying a commodity. Those 1 and 2 euros here and there, they're important, because that might be your profit next week. So we know that you're cheap. We know that you're good to go. You sell a lot of this stuff, but why would people want to buy gold and silver? And I wondered whether or not you might talk about the inflation and maybe borderline hyperinflation type scenarios that a lot of people talk about. I mean, and we've had some people talk about the Weimar Republic. We touched on that last time you were on, which was a long time ago now, but there have been more recent ones, such as Russia, Argentina, Zimbabwe. Hungary, I think, was the latest one. That was, 2005, I think, something like that?
Yeah.
They had 13% inflation per day, I think, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it could be. In the last stretches of the devaluation of a currency, it always goes very, very fast.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
does it start in like it ramps up slowly and then gets worse and worse and worse very quickly? What are the signs? Is there anything that people should be looking out for to see when a currency is going to go and tank, basically?
Oh well, there's a couple of signs about. So the one sign is how much debt is in the country, and is it accelerating or is it increasing or decreasing, basically.
Yeah.
So if we have an increase of 1,000% in 10 years in the country's debt, so that says there's something wrong.
Yeah.
So the next question is, how much did gas prices change?
Yes.
So oil-based products and oil-based living that we have in the Western economy everywhere is so you always want to have an eye on the oil price. So the question is, does oil go up and down? So last week oil went down to $100 per barrel for a long time. Mm-hmm. But we believe oil is going up significantly when the US starts to attack Iran.
Yes. Again, this is where finance crosses politics, isn't it?
Yeah.
And war.
Yeah.
So you wanna look at these things, and of course food prices. I mean, last year I bought 500 grams of spaghetti at Lidl's for 79 cents, and now they're 99 cents.
Yeah, that's 20-some percent in 1 year.
Yeah, so you see, so this is the kind of indication. If you look at the chart of agricultural products,
yeah,
the chart showed an increase of 500%.
Wow.
In just the last 6 or 7 years.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Because as you say, even something like a staple, I mean,
just to look at food prices on the ground.
Basically, pasta is essentially a commodity in much the same way that gold is. Really, it's something that people must have. It's so common. It's a base ingredient, same as sugar and pork bellies and things like that. And you're right. I mean, it's going up at, say, 20% a year, but yet the governments of the Western world all claim that inflation is running at, whatever, 2, 3, 4%. And because of this CPI model that you mentioned, where they gauge inflation based on a basket of items, which they change constantly to make sure that the number seems low. And everybody who goes shopping every week can realize very quickly that they're getting less in their trolley every week or every month. So much so, for example, that Lidl, speaking of Lidl, they've now started using smaller shopping trolleys. They're shallower. They're one-third smaller than they used to be to make it look like you've got more shopping because it's higher up in the basket. They know full well that they're giving you less.
That's an interesting observation. I never really got that. That's so cool. Yeah, well, it does make a lot of sense, doesn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, and it's food, as you say, gasoline. Where does it? And energy. Well, what about energy?
Oh, electricity, gas, oil.
They're all going up.
Yes and no. Well, electricity is a kind of commodity that gets used a lot when there's a lot of industrial production and stuff and things.
Yeah.
So electricity in the States, for example, is one of the main indicators of how the economy works. Mm-hmm. So if the electricity demand goes down, then that's usually an indicator of we're slowing down a bit.
They're making less stuff.
They are producing less and they're making less stuff, and the private person consumes less.
And how is their electricity consumption? Do tell.
How?
Yeah. What are they? Are they on an upwards trend or a downward trend? Would you know even?
I don't have the figure in mind right now. I believe, but I'm not exactly sure, that it went down quite significantly. But the interested reader may find this chart on barons.com, which is one of the main investor magazines in the States, and they do this survey.
It is interesting that we believe things like if the electricity goes down, as you say, and production is going down, we see that as a factual linked piece of evidence. We see that happened before, and we assume it will happen again. So we look at it, and we know that to be true. But yet when you look at the media, they're saying quantitative easing in America is working, we've got road building in progress, and we're coming out of recession and we've got growth. But yet the numbers say something else. Would you go along with that?
Well, of course, the numbers say absolutely something else. So this is why the stock markets reacted so badly to the U.S. unemployment data that came out last Friday, which was revised by nearly 50% or over 50% down. Sorry, and so. Yeah, and the U.S. job data is like the same data as the CPI.
Really?
So
is it manipulated?
It is not. Yeah, well, it's just the rules that are bringing these numbers up. So if you're unemployed for 6 months and you're on, how do you say, you're on the governmental help?
Yeah.
Then after 6 months you don't find a job. You drop out of the statistics.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So we don't really know how many people are actually there.
Yeah.
And there's one guy that runs a website which is called shadowstats.com.
Yeah, I've heard of that, yeah.
He's accounting for every body that wants to work but doesn't find work.
Oh, yes, yeah.
So, and he runs different statistics, and according to this shadow stats figure, which is, in my view, much more accurate than the official figure, is that unemployment is 10%.
I would have thought it would have been higher than that. I'm surprised it's so low.
Well, this is the last figure I've read. So there is no economy running with an unemployment of 10%.
Yeah, I mean, if I think back to 1980s England, unemployment back then I think only got to about 10%. Maybe it was a little bit lower than that, and that was in the pit of one of the worst recessions that England had for since the war, basically, and that pretty much collapsed the economy in England. It was we had was it Black Wednesday or Black Monday, some
Something
black day,
like that, yeah.
And I mean, and that was on an unemployment rate of I think about 10% or maybe even a bit less.
Yes. Well, it's absolutely terrible, and even every figure above 8% is absolutely a red flag for an economy.
And how is the unemployment rate around Europe? To bring it closer to home currently, I mean, you talked about Greece. We know that they've got a very high unemployment. It's 20-some%, isn't it? Maybe by now. And how are we faring in these parts?
Well, I honestly don't know the exact figure about Greece. The only figure that I have in mind is that the unemployment rate in Spain for people like, I don't know, below 25 or something is over 50%.
And that is the key indicator, isn't it? The under 25s, because they are the people, if they don't get work when they leave school or university, they tend not to get work for some time.
Yeah, and it's the same situation in America. I read this article recently that it said there was never a time when college graduates didn't find job in this high numbers.
I heard a stat the other day that said there are 50,000 PhD qualified Americans who are currently unemployed.
That may be accurate.
That's crazy. They're not only just degree qualified; these people are experts in their field, and it's crazy.
Yes. Well, it's just another sign of how untruthful the official data is that we're presented. You know.
Well, we mentioned to you earlier, Steph. We're on iTunes now, and we're getting a very high listenership in the Middle East. I'm just curious. Do you would deal with the Middle East and Saudi for selling gold?
How are they doing?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know exactly about Saudi Arabia, but we do ship gold worldwide, of course. There is a general difference between Europe and the East and Middle East. When
they've got a different currency, haven't they?
Yes, they've got many different currencies, and so obviously we deal only in euro and pounds and US dollars, but most of them do have US dollars. So if they fancy buying, that's absolutely possible. There are some rules and regulations we have to look at, but generally no problem. These countries do mainly okay. So the main
Yes.
gold was like the general trend.
Yes.
In the last 60 years was from west to east.
Yeah.
And the last 3 to 4 weeks when gold went into this dip, building out a bottom at 15.30 dollars per ounce, every gold that came up to the physical markets was soaked up by Asian central banks.
There's nothing surprising there, because when you're talking about economies going down, but what about economies coming up? If you look at China,
Yeah.
they seem to be becoming the new financial power, perhaps.
Almost definitely.
Well, as far as it looks, that China will become the biggest gold importer this year.
Really?
And obviously, they keep all their gold for themselves. They mine about 300 tons a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've got to watch it. The only problem with China is that we don't really know how truthful the figures about their economy is as well. So that's the bit of a hazy wave state we're in this. And as far as I'm concerned, there is a lot of talk about in between the experts in the global industry that talks about a massive slowdown in China because of the crumbling economies in Europe and the States. So we may see like a global slowdown.
I mean, we had a boom in the Western world, which was inevitably followed by a bust. China's currently having a boom.
Yes.
Would we be safe in assuming that they're going to have a bust? Now, I know that their economy is more manipulated than ours because it's communist, so they can bend the rules. But are they in a position where they have an inevitable bust? Are they going to experience a big collapse the same way we have?
Well, yes, of course, because all this paper stuff is all the money is based on paper.
Yeah.
So if you run a country with a paper currency, the bust is inevitable. So I wouldn't bet on China or invest in China if I'm like a private investor.
Yeah,
I mean,
not long term anyway.
No, absolutely not. So yes, I definitely believe there is something that comes because the Chinese exports keep slowing down.
Yeah.
And I believe they had like the first time they dropped massively in their growth. But that's quite a few weeks ago. I don't have the figure present.
They have been struggling more recently because people have been outsourcing and moving production from China to cheaper countries, believe it or not, like Bangladesh and Singapore.
Oh, really?
and so China's boomed, and in a boom, people want more wages because inflation brings things up, and then that makes the Chinese manufacturing not economical for companies in the West, and they move to Bangladesh,
which is not going to help them.
And that's not going to help China stay with its big booming economy for very much longer.
No, I don't believe. I read articles about ghost cities in China where they deported.
Yeah, there are 20 some ghost cities in China, each capable of housing, I think, some crazy figure like 50 million each. They're massive cities, all empty.
Interesting.
No, correction. Crazy. No, there are 50 cities capable of holding over 1 million people. That's the number. I remember it now.
Oh,
yeah, but
wow.
It's still pretty bad.
It's very bad. So I don't know. Well, they just found this radioactive element in a fish in Hawaii. So the Chinese Fukushima situation seems to come back as well, which shines a different light on Japan. So we're seeing many different factors that all kind of support the statement saying we see a global slowdown. And well, that's it.
Yeah. Well, Stefan, why would governments, like you say, China, they're hoarding currently, and Eastern governments, they're buying gold en masse by the ton and the hundreds of ton. Why would a country want to hold large gold reserves? What benefit do they get from that?
Well, gold is the only money that has never failed.
Yeah.
And that's the trick. So you can always barter and buy stuff if you have gold. If you have paper that's not accepted by anyone, you're screwed. So if you have a US dollar and the Chinese decide tomorrow, no more US dollar pay or no more euro pay, only settling in gold, what do you think would happen?
Yeah, not good.
So the Iraqis wanted to sell oil in euro because the euro was much stronger than the dollar.
So did Libya, actually.
And Libya.
So what happened next is kind of history.
Yeah.
But the US would never go into China.
No.
So that's the knowledge they have, and the Asian central banks, they have a much better knowledge about gold than the Western ones.
So if they're buying it, from what you're saying, it sounds more like an insurance policy. They're buying it just in case. Is their level of buying, the volumes that they're buying in, is that going up? And should we take that as an indication that they're expecting trouble?
Oh, yes, definitely. If you look at the amounts that the Chinese central banks bought this year, they are definitely expecting trouble. And they definitely want to get rid of their dollars, and they definitely want to get rid of their euros.
Yeah. I mean, if they're buying it in such big volumes, they're obviously having to spend money to buy the gold, actual paper money or digital money. So they're not buying it with nothing. They're having to generate this money in the economy to buy this gold. So it's not like they're getting it for free or anything. They are actually putting themselves out of pocket to buy this gold. So they're not buying it frivolously. They're actually investing large amounts of money in gold. So they're obviously taking it very seriously.
Yes, definitely. I'm quite well. Like 4 years ago, I said, "Well, we have to watch China because I believe they're going to get one of the biggest gold buyers in the world." And 4 years later, we actually see it. So I never believed the Chinese would be that openly moving in. Well, they never tell how much they really bought, but you kind of can figure it out if you read the statistics that is published from the World Gold Council. And yes, they definitely expecting trouble, and they definitely know the dollar is not going to last, and they definitely know the euro is not going to last.
Well, that's something we can all take a personal, So coming back to you, Steph, how's the way? Is there anything new with the website? Is it still the same procedure for buying a coin, or?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yes. The website got a facelift, which we're very happy about. We have a live ticker of the gold and silver price now up, so people can really follow that. Because if you go to one of these websites, they're like a financial website with a gold price on, they're usually 15 minutes delayed.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So if you're an investor and you're sitting in front of the computer, you want to buy in a dip a bit.
Yeah.
And so we provide that, and the facelift, we've got nice feedback from our customers. So the facelift is seems to be working, and obviously there's a lot of products that are in stock and ready for sale that are incredibly best priced. I mean, I honestly, I don't remember when we ever sold below 3.5% spot.
There's something we know from our stats here, Steph, with iTunes and everything else. We know where we have the listeners. I'm just wondering, is there any particular country that's buying more gold from you? Have you noticed, or anything like that? Or are you at liberty to say?
There is a kind of a trend. So the trend for Ireland seems to go towards silver. So the Irish, for some unknown reasons, they seem to be more keen on buying silver than gold. And the UK customers, they are absolutely keen on gold.
Right.
And and there's a lot. We have a lot of American business recently, which is very nice.
That's what I'm wondering. Yeah, a lot of business from America.
Yeah.
Yes. So the Americans stock up.
Yes.
Which is cool. Well, obviously, we're just a small dealer in the overall ocean of the gold business. So we're not like really. We don't have like numbers that are really suit for everyone. And obviously, Germans go for gold and silver.
Yeah.
And it seems that all the other European countries, like Netherlands, France, and Denmark, they seem to get more interested. So we do have a lot more requests from these countries, not actually sales, but requests than we had before.
Would you sell much to Greece or Portugal or Spain or any other countries that are deemed to be in trouble? Are they still wealthy enough to buy gold and silver?
We do have Spanish customers. We don't have Greek customers, but we do have Spanish customers. And you have to imagine there is still a lot of wealthy folks out there.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So if they kept their money in stocks, they're not completely wiped out.
Yeah.
So and there is still a lot of moving towards like, oh my God, where do I put my money? It doesn't really look that safe. The stocks.
I guess the problem is if you have your money in stocks, aren't they usually tied up for a certain amount of years? Isn't that somehow a lot of these deals work? Isn't it when you pay into a thing like that?
Well, the stock, you can sell a stock any time. There may be some taxes on the sale, or if you made a profit, like a capital gains tax.
Yeah.
Are you thinking of bonds, Basil?
I'm thinking of something like that. I'm thinking of these things that the banks used to offer you.
Yeah, bonds.
Kind
of a bond.
You'd have to leave your money in for
Deposit
about 7 years.
accounts and things.
Deposit accounts,
Yeah.
which don't get offered at the moment, I've noticed.
Savings accounts, like midterm accounts that you have to keep your money 18 months.
Exactly,
And ones that run like 5 years or something. So yes, these are all like pension plans.
Yeah.
What would you call the term of a gold buyer? Would somebody would probably not be buying gold for a short-term gain or a short-term insurance. Would it be long-term, medium-term? Because I know that gold over the last, say, 10 years has got a very nice shaped curve. If you bought gold 10 years ago, you're probably quite smug. Whereas for the last year, it's been a little bit more undulating. So what would the term be to see a good return on your gold?
Oh well, right now it's a good time to buy, and so our customers, they come from different angles. We do have customers that just trade with these things on a physical basis, so they do buy sell, and there are customers that absolutely believe in the devaluation of currencies, and they buy obviously mid-term to long-term. And then there are other customers that just don't trust banks anymore. So they kind of move out of banks completely.
Yeah.
And so these customers, they all have like of a midterm in mind.
Yeah. What would that be, sort of 3 to 5 years or longer?
I'd say 2 to 5 years.
Yeah.
Yes. The long-term cyclists that study these long-term economic cycles, the ups and downs, they believe. So you could look like at these Elliott wave patterns. So some of your readers may be familiar with those. And there is one guy that's Professor Contrati, that's often put up on these long cycle turns, and they all kind of like believe that this next cycle ends between 2015 and 2020.
Right.
So at the end of this cycle, we have to shift and move our gold back into something else, most likely real estate.
Right. That will be, I assume, the bottom of the recession before it starts going to the top?
That's right. So real estate will be very cheap. Gold will be very high.
Yeah.
Because at some point, you have to imagine, we're kind of insiders right now, even though we're not talking of trade secrets or anything. I mean, this information is all out in the public. The question is, does it reach people?
Yeah.
Once it reaches people, do they get it?
Yeah.
Like, it took me a long time to get it. I mean, I didn't believe what I was reading. And then I was like, holy smokes, this is real. This is really happening. So we're still insiders. And at some point, the mass media can't ignore the facts.
I think
So
I'd like to say you're right, but I think they will. I think they'll look at what's in front of them. They'll talk about how property's going up and how happy people are, and then they'll talk about how property's going down and how miserable they feel, and then they'll just read the gold price as if it's a separate thing, as if they're not connected. I think they'll just ignore it, Stefan. That's what they seem to do best.
That's absolutely right. This is like not my most favorite example, but it's the most impacting example. If you look at all these pedophilia scandals of the Vatican,
Yeah.
I don't know for how many years they're doing it, or centuries.
Yeah.
But at some point, the pressure is so intense that the mass media can't avoid it. And if you read it like 2008 and 9, you kind of read, oh, there was one little thing in Italy, and then suddenly the Irish came about, and then there was like one article after the other that the mass media couldn't avoid.
Yeah.
So there is a sort of like a pressure point, and if that pressure point is reached, and we're far away from it right now, we're not there yet, then the mass media can't avoid it. So, and I personally believe, once gold hits $5,000 which is not far away, it's maybe 2 years from now. Once gold hits the 5,000, then the mass media jumps on the train, saying, "Oh, gold! This is the ultimate investment, la 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 la," and then it rocks maybe up to 10,000.
Yeah.
And this is the time when we're going to sell. And we tell our customers when it's time to sell.
Yeah. I think, is it probably worthwhile mentioning, there's a lot of people out there talking about $5,000 gold and 10 and even higher. I think I heard 50,000 once, but thousands per ounce of gold are what people are projecting. You're not the only person saying that. A number of people have talked about gold-backed currencies, which is probably too late to get into now, but if we were to start backing our currencies, that the amount of money that's printed today with gold, and we went back to the old system where you could swap your paper for gold, are they plucking these numbers out of fresh air, or do they represent, as I suspect, what gold would have to be priced at to back modern money? Because there's so much paper money out there. If you were to back it by gold, gold would have to be worth a lot more money. If that makes sense, hopefully I explained that properly.
Yes, Mark. There is one thing that we have to get our head around, is that a price is a thought form made by humans.
Yeah.
So if you go to the shop and you buy a loaf of bread and the baker says €4, then he thought about it.
Yeah.
Right? Obviously, this thought form is based on calculations, and that's how much profit I'm going to take, how much do I have to pay to get the grains and the ingredients, and how much electricity and rent and all of these things. But a price is a thought form, so you can back any economy with any amount of gold any time.
Yeah.
So it's absolutely no problem. But we're living in a Western world. If we go back to a gold-backed currency like the gold standard, we're screwed, because we simply don't have any gold left.
Well, that's what I was thinking. If you've got less physical gold and you do go back to a gold standard, surely your gold's going to be worth a fortune. It's going to be $50,000 an ounce just to cover the amount of paper money that's out there. Is that kind of it? Has that got anything to do with what you're talking about, or are you talking about just the economic boom and bust cycles?
No. This is what I'm talking about. Because there are people out there, Ben Bernanke, for example, let's say it's a gold standard. We will never have a gold standard.
It's quite funny that every time anybody says Ben Bernanke, they say it laughingly.
So you go like, excuse me, man. I mean, just read your balance sheet. Yeah. It's not rocket science, it's a balance sheet. So if you cut out all the debt, because gold can never be based on debt, right? Gold is debt free.
Yeah.
If you cut out all your debt, you could reduce the world's GDP by 80%.
Yeah.
So this is what tells us. So we could go back to a gold standard, but gold is a worldwide standard, right? So, and there will be a price that's measured in something.
Yeah.
That's that's valid for all the world. So if you're a Western economy that doesn't have any gold, and you're an Asian economy that does have a lot of gold, you're absolutely much more wealthy. But I mean, obviously there's trade, so you can trade your surplus, and there you go. Let's export Guinness to Vietnam.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, which we probably are. I just want to, from last time you mentioned, I think it's well worth bringing up again that as gold as an inheritance.
Ah, yes, that is
because
a good thing.
I think the tax wasn't. What did you say, Steph? That there was. Well, you could just gift it. I mean, nobody need ever know. It's a piece of gold, so
yeah.
Gold is a highly movable good outside of the system. It's not traceable.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's the good thing about it. So if you inherit your gold to someone else, it's absolutely your thing, and there's no taxes.
Yeah, because if I was to leave my daughter a house, or if I had money or
she'd
something,
have to sell it to pay the tax.
Exactly.
Defeats the object.
So the thing to do would be to put it into gold, perhaps,
and pass it to her in her hand in a bag,
or leave it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that was one very good thing you mentioned about gold, and the freedom as well from the system.
Yes. If you look at gold as a storage for wealth, so wealth is nothing else than surplus labor, right?
Yeah.
So you went out, you did your job, and you kind of had a few euros or dollars or whatever currency left. And if you store that, then gold is the only storage for wealth, which is the definition for money. If we want to be exactly accurate here, it's the only thing that never failed. So, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. It gives you freedom.
Yeah, but especially at the moment, I mean, we're looking at a financial collapse. I think, putting it at its very, very worst.
People think it's already collapsed. I tend to think that it's only starting.
Yeah, I think
we are.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's not after you, Steph. Yeah.
We're in the middle of it, gentlemen.
Yeah.
And listeners, and we're absolutely in the middle of it.
That's what we're trying to say to people,
Yeah, 2008 wasn't it. 2008 was the beginning.
If you've got anything, you need to protect it, and it's not going to be in any form of pension or any.
Yeah. I'll tell you a small story, Stefan. Back in the year 2000, I started work for a new company. And they offered me a pension, and I worked out some time ago that pensions were bad, and I cancelled my. I had a pension when I first started work, and I cancelled it after a few months when I did the maths. And I started work for a new company, and they sent me a little package that said, "Please indicate whether or not you want your company pension. We give so many % extra above what you contribute." It sounded great. I ticked the little box that said, "No, thank you. Stuff your pension. Just give me the cash." And I sent it back in. And do you know, the first month I worked for them, they deducted a pension. And I phoned them and said, "Why have you taken a pension from me? I didn't want a pension." She said, "Oh, really? You're the only one who's ever said no. We just assumed that everybody said yes and put them all on the same pile." They didn't even check them because everybody said yes. I was the only person in the company that said no. And they had to refund me on my wages on month 2. That's just crazy.
It is. It's a lovely story, and I hope that your listeners will be encouraged to kind of go into their stuff and re-look things.
Yes.
And it's not so much about us saying do this or do this.
Yes.
It's more on the line trying to open up a new perception towards things, so everybody can kind of like have a basis of information, and then just soak the information in, which is kind of balancing out the stuff that we're bombarded with on a daily basis by just walking through the alley and reading these newspapers or watching telly or whatnot. And then to sort of like have a different view, develop a different view on things, and then make your decisions on your own feeling. Exactly. On how things should be in your personal life.
Exactly.
And I think that's the beauty of this radio show, to present that a massive amount of information towards the people. And as far as I can tell, everyone knows what they're talking about.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not that you have someone that says, "Oh, well, it could be this, it could be that, la la la." It's and this is the beauty of it, to present this information, and then so everyone can really feel things out and then move towards how they feel best and strongest.
Well, exactly, Steph. It's free media. So we're not working for anybody.
No.
Unlike some of the major networks, and I think that's the problem there, you know.
Well, the problem is that if you are a big network, not to blow our own trumpet too much, they have advertisers, and the advertisers become the untouchables. Yeah. If one of their advertisers sells, let's say, medicines or pharmaceuticals, they're never going to run a story that says anything bad about genetically modified food, are they?
Exactly, Mark. Well, that's the perfect point
and
you've
so on
made
and so
there.
forth. And if they have a bank or a financial institution on their advertisement books, they're not going to talk about gold ever.
What do you think, Steph?
Well, as far as my understanding and knowledge goes, this is absolutely accurate.
I'm afraid it is. I think people need to get their minds around that concept because advertising is king.
Yeah, exactly. I think we're about out of time. What do you think about that?
I just want to ask Steph, what are your plans for the future? Anything coming up or just...
Well, we're working a lot on the website recently, and we're kind of like in the last stretches to finish that project. Yep. Obviously, we added a lot of gold products, and we're selling at absolutely best price. We're shipping free of charge and fully insured for every order above €3,500 to Europe.
Wow!
So we're doing all these lovely things, and I'm doing a personal silver tour for UK and Ireland in July.
Oh, tell us more.
Tell us, Steph. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't want to go over time with you guys. I'm really sorry.
No. Do give us details.
Yeah, we want.
It's all very exciting. I'm really looking forward to it. So the thing is that if you buy silver in Europe, there's VAT on silver, right? So you want to buy in the country that's got the lowest VAT, which is by accident Germany.
Last time.
Yeah.
So if you're in the UK and you can buy your silver 10% below the cheapest market price you can ever get in the UK, you kind of go like, oh wow, this is really interesting.
Yeah.
So I'm doing a silver tour, and I'm meeting a lot of investors and customers and interested people. In the end of July. Yeah. So everybody can put their order in, and then we're going to hang out and deliver and have a chat.
Nice.
Everything is done in a secure way, of course. Yeah. So I'm doing that in July.
I can tell you from personal experience, Steph is great fun to hang out with because we have done in the past.
Well, we had a good time, didn't we? It was lovely. Yeah. Well, so that's the silver tour. I'm very excited about.
When you do the tour, Steph, is it going to be in hotels, or are you going to be giving talks in hotels, or how does it work?
No, it's technically just meeting private people, existing customers, new customers that want to order, and they got to know us by the time. Yes.
They can come and buy from you directly on the tour, or do you just take orders and then deliver
out of the car, over the counter sale?
Right. Well, that's good, you see, because you can get the thing without the local tax on it. I would assume.
Yeah. Yep.
So we're going to do that, and then I'm doing individual investor talks for Ireland. Yeah. I think after the summer break in September, so we're going to starting with that, where people can kind of book me for like 2 or 3 hours to chat through the fundamentals and talk about the gold and silver things in Ireland. Nice. And this is another exciting thing, but it's not confirmed yet, so we're still on the road to getting that done.
Well, if you're in our quarter, then let us know. Sorry,
we will Sorry. We will provide storage space, secure and insured storage space for Irish customers in Limerick and Dublin. So that's something down the road.
New. Yeah, wonderful.
And we may have, but that's just in the making right now as well. We may have personal and hand delivery with cash service available for County Dublin and County Kerry. Right. I think it probably like 3 to 4 weeks and we're up and running. So people can really meet with an expert and kind of like say, oh, I want to buy up 20 ounces of silver and I pay you cash or something. Everything. Obviously, we've got to apply to the rules and and make sure that there's everything kosher and safe. So that's the sort of plan that we're mapping out for the future.
That's superb, Steph. So the details will be on celticgold.eu.
That's right, yes.
Yeah, brilliant.
And maybe we can post up some details about it as well.
We'll put your details
Steph,
on
thank
there.
you ever so much. Brilliant. As always, it's a pleasure.
Well, thank you, Mark and Basil. It was such a fantastic time, and thank you for having me. And I hope your listeners really enjoy it, and keep going with the good work.
Steph, not only do you sell gold, your advice is golden.
Oh, Basil.
Well, thank you, guys.
I hope crappy humour doesn't translate very well.
No, I hope so. Best of luck, my friend. Thank you,
Thanks, Stefan.
Right. Best of luck. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Wow.
Good old Steph.
What a brilliant...
Thanks very much. We'll see you next time on the Out There Hour.
Your humour just gets me.
Thanks to our friend Steph.
It's just bad.
CelticGold.eu.
Time now for the Out There Hour on Alternative Future Radio. The Out There Hour with Basil and Mark. www.alternativefutureradio.com. Yay!
The bottom, because I assume they're doing it to try and compete against China.
Well, it's mostly to do with the country's economy. If you have a weak currency and another country does have a stronger currency, then it's much cheaper to buy from your country with a weak currency.
Yeah.
So they're trying to compete themselves in a devaluation. But the problem is that it hurts everything. It hurts the people that have assets in the currency. So if you have assets in the euro, like the 1,000 euro in your bank account, or the 100,000 euro, or US dollars, or British pounds, or Australian dollars, they all get devalued. So you lose in purchasing power, and that actually destroys the economy on a long term.
What would be the motivation to do that then?
Well, that's a tricky question, Mark. The motivation to do that, I don't really know. It's kind of, if you have a lot of debt, so the US debt is like 15 point something trillion or 17 trillion currently.
Yeah, that's their cash debt, isn't it? That's not their total liability.
Yeah, that's just the official debt.
Yeah.
And if you have a lot of debt and you print more money, you devalue your debt.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of idea. And well, every country in the Western world kind of tenfold their debt within the last 10 years.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's been a historical thing.
If you don't use dollars.
Okay, so hopefully, all things being equal, we should now have Stefan Kramer on the line. Hello, Stefan.
Hello, Mark. Hello, Basil.
Hello, Stefan. It's always such a pleasure to speak to you.
Well, thank you for having me another time on your fantastic show.
Well, anytime, Steph.
It's actually nice to have a different accent, because we actually generally have a lot of American people on here, or English people. It makes a change.
Yes, and we broadcast to Europe and the Middle East and Africa, so...
Still very big in the Middle East.
Good to have a European.
Yeah. I wish I knew why we're big in Saudi Arabia, but anyway, press on. Stefan, it's been an interesting time recently in the world's financial markets. We were talking about this briefly before we came on air. Gold has seen some highs and some lows recently. The trend's been down recently, hasn't it, Stefan? And then it's recently gone back up again.
Well, that's accurate. We've seen approximately 3 weeks of gold going in like a sideways bottom area. And there was a lot of fear and anxiety in the market, mainly communicated by the main media, saying gold lost its safe haven status and it's a commodity and it goes down to 1,400. And that caused a lot of anxiety in the gold investor scene. And last Friday we've seen an historical event, and gold actually bounced back up 4.2%, which is unseen. And historically, it was very, very rare that gold ever closed a 3% plus in one day. So that's kind of like, it's kind of like a very important day for every gold investor.
Yeah.
And everyone had this sort of like psychological mark in mind of $1,600, and gold actually pushed through this resistance, closed at 1620. And today it's pretty stable. It's kind of a sideways trade, a little bit calmer today. But in general, this is all very interesting, and the world seems to see the problems we're having, like
yes.
the unemployment data from the States sent the stock markets massively down, minus 3% in Germany, minus 2.2% in America, the Dow Jones last Friday.
And did that money then just get taken straight out and put into gold?
They need another a few billions to help their system. Greece got another share, and the Bank of England just announced to print another £50 billion.
Oh, that was quiet news. I didn't hear that mentioned.
Yeah, they said they're gonna print another 50 billion, and so we can see we're in this sort of like worldwide currency devaluation competition in a way, So the question is, who's first or who is last?
Yeah, and is it good, Stefan? A lot of people will know a little bit about this. Is it good to win this race?
You're listening to Alternative Future Radio, home of the weird, resting place of the paranormal. Will take you to the furthest reaches of the galaxy and beyond. Strange phenomena, aliens, psychics, cryptozoology, conspiracy, holistic health, and UFOs. Alternative Future Radio, where spooky just got weird.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Out There Hour. Today we're talking about money. Some like it, some love it. I love it.
The Out There Hour on Alternative Future Radio. The Out There Hour with Basil and Mark. www.alternativefutureradio.com.
Yay! Basil, any? Yay?
Welcome, Europe, Africa, and the Middle East.
And the rest of the world.
Today,
good morning.
We are talking. Good morning. Good evening, good afternoon.
Yes, I said money, but not as we know it.
Money is not... money. Paper money.
Who is it?
What is it? Do we want it?
Do I need it?
Yeah.
Is it something I want?
Well, you need it.
Yeah, well, you do. Because if I am a plumber and you're a baker and I need some buns, but I don't need, and you don't need any plumbing doing,
What on earth are you talking?
This is not a metaphor.
Well, we're in an interesting position since the recent vote on the fiscal treaty, so we'll be talking about money today, and actually how to protect your money if you've got any left.
We're talking gold, we're talking silver.
Yeah.
We're also talking hammers. We're talking Stefan Kramer.
We're talking Stefan Kramer, a man with 15 years' experience as a gold broker.
Oh, blimey, research, Basil.
He's an international business.
No, yes. Ships gold all over the place.
Celtic Gold.
Yeah, CelticGold.eu is his website. And I can personally vouch that he's actually pretty bloody cheap, to be honest. In fact, so far for me, he's been the cheapest.
And Stefan has got his eye on the ball. He sees what's happening with fiat currency and paper currency as we know it. And he's out to, he wants to help.
Yeah, exactly. He provides lots of free information. He's got a newsletter I think you can subscribe to on his website, which is very professionally written. They have experts and such like.
He'll be talking about, he's going on a tour to go around
apparently so.
And chat with people and tell them.
And sell gold directly, and silver.
Yeah, and just give advice as well on the best way to, to buy it and...
To strengthen your portfolio, some might say.
Yeah, exactly.
Shall we do it?
Let's do it. Let's talk to Stefan, because it's always a pleasure to talk to Steph.
You know what you need first?
An advert, I think.
Yeah.
Why not help support this station by buying the new Alternative Future Radio Android application? Not only can you download all the latest shows, but you can go back into time and get the archive shows too, and it's just $1.99. PayPal will bill you in your usual currency.